Good afternoon, everyone. You're welcome to today's edition of our Facebook live series. We really apologize for having this session at this time. Usually, like it's our culture to have it Thursdays at 11 a.m. prompt, but due to reasons, circumstances beyond our control, we thought we should have it by this time. We really apologize for the inconvenience and having broken the culture. We really apologize. So today we are going to be talking about World AIDS Day as it relates to persons, workers living with HIV or persons living with HIV. So first of all, I think we would start with talking about World AIDS Day. Then before we now talk about workers living with HIV. So World AIDS Day is a very with every first December, um, every first December, and it's a very important date in the world, not in Nigeria, not in Africa, not in Tanzania, not in Europe or Asia, but in the world. So on this day, um, the world at large celebrates um, uh, celebrates and yeah, celebrates. Well, the world celebrates this day every first of December, and this day is mainly marked to show support and also look at strategies on how to eliminate HIV totally from this world. So it's a day where we show our solidarity with our loved ones who are affected by this virus. So as we should anyway, we are our brother's keeper, right? So in as much as some of us are not positive with the virus, we still find the need to show support to our loved ones or persons we don't even know who are affected by this virus. You know, some people even contract this virus not by their own making. Like I've heard a lot of stories where persons contract this virus from promiscuous infidel husbands who are infidel or promiscuous husbands. Some people also contract this virus from rape, from careless use of objects. A lot of ways people contract, of course, and again through sexual intercourse with a random person. It's several ways people so it's not everyone who you see virus positive with the virus that has done something really bad that should make you hate the person. Some persons have contracted it not because they have done something really bad, not because they were prostituting or something. And however, even if they were prostituting and contracted this virus, we still should be our brother's keepers. So that is all for World AIDS Day. So in celebration of this year's World AIDS Day, lawyers alert spoke on the rights of workers in Nigeria. So I'm kind of doing like an extension of what we have already done because Workers' Day, of course, has passed by how many days now? By 4 days. Yeah. So I'm doing like a repeat of what Lawyers Alert has already done. So on that day, Lawyers Alert spoke on the rights of workers in Nigeria who suffer various abuses at workplaces for the sake of their status, of their HIV status. So persons living with HIV in Nigeria are continually humiliated, discriminated against, relieved of their jobs at the workplaces on grounds of their status. So it's very unfortunate that in this time, where there's a lot of information for someone to know about, there's a lot of there's just a whole lot of information and a lot of things one should know, and people still discriminate against persons living with HIV. Yeah, it's fine if you're not comfortable with it, but relating with someone who is HIV positive can in no way put you at risk of contracting it, except you are relating with the person closely. Thereby, the relationship would have to involve blood, blood. Will I say flow of blood, like would have to be the situation whereby blood is shared or something. So even at that, sometimes, if you really read about this HIV thing, you'd see that there's a lot you don't even know. Probably the lot we most of us know is that HIV is a virus. That's the only thing we know, most of us. Meanwhile, HIV, for someone who is HIV positive, there's an extent to which you can religiously take your drugs and your count reduces maximally, that even when you have sexual intercourse with someone who is negative, you would not transmit that virus. So a lot of us don't even know this. So I think it's an act of wickedness. It is morally wrong and humanly wrong for you to discriminate against someone living with HIV, for you to relieve someone of his or her job, her daily her daily meal medium, just because the person is HIV positive. Really, I was talking to in a meeting I went to. It was about HIV, so I was talking about it, and my opinion was the reason HIV is, I don't know, scares a lot of people, and people tend to run away from anything that has to do with HIV, or any person who somehow maybe has contracted or is positive with the virus, is because of the much ado that came with the introduction of the virus. HIV is not the only deadly virus. Like, it's not the only thing someone can suffer from that may lead to the person's death. It's not. You know the amount of people who die of malaria every year? I'm sure you don't know that one. Do you know the amount of persons who die from diarrhea? Do you know the amount of persons who die from kidney infections? Do you even know about hepatitis? The ones that cannot be cured, can never be cured, hepatitis B. Do you know it is sexually transmitted? I'm sure you don't know that one. There are lots of things, I said in that same meeting that when you see me when I'm suffering from malaria and typhoid, because that's my usual sickness, but by the grace of God, I'm fine now. So when you see me suffer from that, these two sicknesses, you would feel sorry for me, because I get drained. I look like someone who really is HIV positive, who is someone who has contracted HIV without treatment. So I look like someone like that. I look so terrible. So, and if I don't treat myself, of which a lot of people have neglected, not treated themselves from these sicknesses, and of course died, you would, I don't know, of course it can lead to someone's death. So meanwhile, HIV, for technology's sake, and for all credits to technology, there are now several some ways, or there are some drugs now people who are living with HIV can actually be on religiously, and can help them maintain their lives, and when they died in natural death, not from HIV. So persons living with HIV are just like every other normal person who suffers one or two sicknesses, and who is down sometimes, is up sometimes. So these people are just normal. They live their normal lives, except you're not on treatment. If you're not on treatment, it's a totally different thing altogether. But if you are on treatment, you take your treatment, you're religious, you calculate and know how and when to take your drugs as prescribed by your physician, nothing is wrong with you. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. So these people sell. The thing is, you don't even know. They look. They are normal people like us, because they look as healthy as we do, and even healthier than some of us. So that's, by the way, I think I've spoken about this a lot. So now, workers, it's quite unfair to, I can't imagine myself being the child. Let's say I'm like 12 years old, then I have a father or a mother who is HIV positive, then my mother or my father comes back home and tells us that he's no longer working, he doesn't have a job anymore, we can't go to school anymore, we can't feed as we used to anymore, we can't even put on some new clothes, we can't do, things that every normal person or a child should do, at least to make life easy. Then I ask, for what reason? Then He tells me because he is sick. Sick of what? HIV. It doesn't make sense. If so long as the person is healthy enough to carry on the activities scheduled for him in the workplace, there's no reason for you to sack the person. You can only relieve someone of his duty, her job, or his job if the person is inefficient. Not inefficient in terms of not carrying out activities timely, lazy, doing things haphazardly, things like that. Not because the person is HIV positive. So now there's an act which was established in the year 2014. So the act is known as the HIV and AIDS Anti-Discrimination Act 2014. So this act has been in place for so long, God knows when. Okay, that's like 2014. That's like this year is 2019. That's like 5 years now, and very soon we'll be going to, by the grace of God, we are going to 2020, and that's like 6 years. So unfortunately, okay, there's this provision. There's a part of this provision, this act, is section 21, which talks about the mandatoriness of every workplace to adopt a HIV workplace policy, which is consistent with the national HIV and AIDS work plan, something like, yeah, policy, yeah, which is consistent with the national HIV and AIDS policy. So, and unfortunately, this act has been for 5 years and nothing has been done about it. So Lawyers Alert took this up last year, ended of last year, I think that's like November. We took it up and we wrote an FOI request. Okay, FOI is Freedom of Information request. FOI, Freedom of Information. So we wrote an FOI request to the ministry in charge of collecting and the ministry in charge of collecting the workplace policies which have been adopted by these workplaces. So every workplace is supposed to adopt this policy and announce and submit to the Ministry of Labor and Productivity as mentioned by the Act, but which is now Ministry of Labor and Employment. So we wrote an FOI request to the ministry asking for an evidence to show that this social amount of workplaces have complied and social amount have not complied. So unfortunately, there's actually nothing like that. No workplace has complied, of course, except like a few workplaces anyway have complied. And these few workplaces, well, the list wasn't given to us by the ministry, but based on our relationship with other organizations, we are able to realize that just Lawyers Alert and one or two other organizations have complied with this. So it's quite unfortunate, and we believe that the reason people are humiliated, discriminated against, relieved of their jobs at their workplaces, is because this act has not been complied with. And the Attorney General of the Federation is aside the fact that Section 150 of the Constitution gives him makes him the chief law officer of the Federation, this same act, HIV and AIDS Anti-Discrimination Act 2014, also gives him the power and gives him reposes in him the duty to make sure that this act is complied with. So unfortunately, nothing has been done about this act, and workplaces have still been carrying on their activities the way they wish and treating persons living with HIV the way they wish. So Lawyers Alert, upon requesting for these documents showing that social amount of workplaces have complied with this act, saw that nothing was coming forth, so we went to court. So we currently have a suit against the Attorney General of the Federation, and of course, um, also adding the Minister for Labor and Productivity, Minister for Labor and Employment. Yeah, sorry, don't remind me. In the suit, so we have a suit against both offices. So now, hopefully, we see what happens eventually. So, in our suit, one of the things we are asking is that the Attorney General is compelled to carry on his duties as enshrined in the Act. So now, leaving the act, we are going to talk about numerous cases that Lawyers Alert has handled. So actually, we decided to do the FOI, which eventually led to the lawsuits, because by virtue of our relationship with vulnerable groups and persons, we have come in contact with several persons who have come to us with complaints their of their workplaces relieving them of their jobs, of their duties, just because of their HIV status. So it was getting too much that Lawyers Alert had to do the FOI, which then led to the suit, which is currently at the National Industrial Court, FCT. So, we have handled a lot of cases, of which one is concluded. We have concluded one, and we got judgment for that one. So the case is Mr. X, is the case of Mr. X, as we fondly call it. So we call the case, the name of the person who suffered the discrimination is Mr. X. We give the person that just to conceal his real identity. So this case has been concluded. It was concluded last year, September 26th last year, which was when the judgment was given. And in less than 2 months, lawyers that made sure that they did not only institute this case and saw it through, that they also made sure that the um, the amount of money, the compensation the courts had awarded, the amount of the compensation the court had awarded to the victim was duly awarded by the the former employers who sacked him unduly. So this case, the case actually went on for like I think close to 2 years, and after that we have handled several other cases. And some of the cases we have not gone to court for, but we settled via mediation and other ADR means. So Lawyers Alert is actively doing a whole lot in terms of workers living with HIV, and of course persons living with HIV, because workers is only a section of the persons in general living with HIV and AIDS. And on the World AIDS Day, we took the opportunity to plead that the Attorney General should carry on his duties as enshrined in the HIV and AIDS Anti-Discrimination Act. We believe that if that section of the Act, which is Section 21, is complied with, a whole lot of discrimination against persons in their workplaces would reduce maximally. So this is all we have to speak for today. So we wish you a very lovely day, and we hope you enjoyed this topic. So we are going to come your way next week with another interesting topic. Thank you.